Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Doof Game Club Game Over stream. Doof Media's exploration of the joy of play. I'm Ruben Morehouse.
And I'm Elliot Diebold.
And just a reminder, the Game Over stream, while a key part of what we do at the Game Club, it's not the only part of the Game Club. You can always access the Discord and take part in discussions with everybody in the club throughout the entirety of the month, as well as streams and chats and all kinds of good stuff in there. So head on over there. It's free to join. Anyone can do it. doofmedia.com/discord, and you can join in the game club for the other, 29 days of the month.
Yeah, exactly. A whole bunch of stuff happens exclusively in there.
We'll usually do streams on Twitch, but all the other community members will often do streams and give thoughts and all that stuff. So if you want the full experience, head to the Discord.
So
But enough about that.
This month, your streams are also on Discord.
Yes. Well, I wasn't really going to bring this up, but I guess we should. Anyway, let's introduce the game first. We are this month talking about Doom 2016 by id Software, a remake. Yeah, that's the term. A remake, a redo, a revamp of original Doom with, graphics and gameplay styles of 20 years later. So, it's an interesting game. General thoughts, I suppose.
I loved it. This was exactly up my alley. It was basically Ratchet and Clank meets Metroid Prime in a lot of ways, which those are two of my favorite series of all time. And this shared 90% of its gameplay with those two franchises.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting you to really enjoy this one, and I'm glad that you did, Elliot. I want to just finish off the thing I was going to say before, which is why I didn't stream on Twitch. For some reason, both this game and the sequel, Doom Eternal, I don't know what it is, like their graphics API usage or whatever is like atrocious. I have some VODs. I think I actually uploaded the first of my Doom 2016 videos from before I went back and looked at it, and it was just like completely fucked up. That's why I didn't stream on Twitch, because it was not having a good time.
That sounds like PC person problems to me. I was playing on PS4. I had no problems. I really love the overall structure of this game. Of like, you get weapons and you have to do things to upgrade them, and there's challenges to encourage you to play in different ways. Like that loop is just what's kept me coming back to Ratchet and Clank for 20 years, and this was just like a slightly different flavor of it. It was maybe a bit grindy at times, but most of it, it was fine.
I want to kind of, I guess I want to introduce the idea of comparisons for this, because one, this game is a remake of original Doom from '93, I think it is, and I think we'll talk about that. I ended up playing that so I could get some points of comparison, and I think that's a very interesting comparison. I actually didn't realize until I played that just how much of a remake this is, and why it succeeds in so many ways. So I think that'll be something that we talk about. But also, just I think it's worth kind of talking about, because I don't think we've played very many first-person shooters on the Game Club, right?
No.
Is that a genre you have a lot of familiarity with, Elliot?
I yes, but then also no. I feel like this is a genre where I very specifically have played certain games and franchises to death, but like I probably don't have a very well-rounded first. Like, we've been playing Apex recently on the Discord together.
Yeah,
I'd never touched anything like that before playing it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other comparison I think that might come up is you've been playing a fair amount of Halo recently.
Yeah. I was going to point
which
that
I
later.
think,
So Halo and Apex, you can watch both of those on that Discord as well. I stream Halo with Kipos, and Ruben and I stream Apex with Bob on the Discord.
Yeah, but for me, Apex or other first-person shooters I've played, they're all like they're multiplayer shooters, right? Like Overwatch or TF2 or whatever, right? Or going way back to like Counter-Strike or whatever the fuck. I'm actually not that familiar. I'm actually struggling to think of like proper legit first person shooter single player campaign games that I've played other than Doom. I don't really have a lot of ones that I could pull out.
Yeah, so like I've played the Metroid Prime games to death. I also played
Mm,
a lot of the Call of Duty games, mostly single player, which is like the
right.
equivalent. They're like that's like the Michael
Why?
Bay movie of video games.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
that was mostly because most of my friends at college were super into it as well, and I don't think they're bad games. They're definitely lazy in a lot of ways, but like there's a reason they took off.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, so yeah, I guess weirdly I might have a bit more experience with first person
yeah.
campaign modes.
Yeah, I think you might. Anyway,
Yeah.
we've given some context to this game. We've given some context to us as players going into it. Should
Yeah.
we jump into our kind of overall thoughts of the game, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Um, let's get into talking about the combat, I suppose, would be
Yeah, that is the main part of the game, I
yeah,
suppose.
that's most of it. Um,
Um,
yeah.
so I kind of want to jump back to Doom 1993 for a moment, just because I think it's important to start with that and be like, playing that, I really was surprised by, this is a game from 1993. I was expecting it to feel pretty
Old.
rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, like as an example, I've played the original GoldenEye game, and I played a bit of that GoldenEye multiplayer, and they did a remake on Wii that I played as well, and that's
Yeah.
like an old FPS,
Oh yeah,
right? And
I tried to replay GoldenEye with some friends like 2 years ago, and that game has aged atrociously.
right, and that was kind of what I was expecting going into Doom. And yes, it's got some rough bits, but the thing that I was really amazed by for it, and I think what makes it special and what makes Doom 2016 special is it feels so fast paced and fluid. Like I was playing Doom 1993 the same way I'd been playing Doom 2016, which was running out, blasting some demons, trying to run through them, like ducking around a corner, kind of quickly jumping out and shooting them. Like it was very, very fast paced. I was moving really quickly. You're like running around very quick, trying to land shots on these demons that are also kind of moving around pretty quickly and trying to shoot you. And it was just very, very fast paced. And I think that's the combat of this game as well, Doom 2016, that made it feel so fun. Is this like, you have, as we're seeing on stream now, you have like a room with some verticality, and you're kind of running around between pillars, ducking in and out, shooting demons with a variety of different weapons that have different kind of engagement styles, trying to make these like on the fly decisions about the best way to
Yeah.
approach each demon and which demons to prioritize and all that stuff that leads to this very like cohesively fun and high octane, I guess, gameplay. And I just thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have that same comparison point for the original, but like there's definitely, and I don't want to get into it too much because I feel like it's been talked to death on the internet, but like the way that Doom 2016 felt very much like a response to the way cover-based shooters had sort of taken over
Mm,
the genre. Like I'm thinking, like Call of Duty and all of those. Like I enjoyed those campaigns, but it's definitely a loop of like it's on the higher difficulties especially. You point your head out, shoot some stuff, and then sit behind cover for 10 seconds, and then you get to play the game again for 2 seconds, and then you go back, and like Doom is very much like this 2016 one feels like it's directly calling that sort of gameplay out as like how do we change that fundamentally.
mm,
Um, I think what was really
mm,
interesting though, as like an aside on that aspect of its gameplay, I played the game on like a fairly easy difficulty. I think you have 3 levels of difficulty to start with. You have access to, and I picked the middle one. And that was actually like a fairly straightforward difficulty level. I played the
mm,
first level on the toughest difficulty after beating the campaign, like level 5.
mm.
And it totally changed how I had to play. In a really cool way. Like it kind of felt like the higher difficulty forced me to play the way Doom wanted me to play a lot more. Like on the middle difficulty, I was kind of able to just glory kill whenever I wanted, or like hide from stuff. Or often, like there were too many battles where I just kind of got to stand there and just shoot people and glory kill, and I didn't really have to think that strategically.
Right, interesting.
On the toughest difficulty, I had to. I was worrying about everything. It was like I was worried about ammo. I was worried about like
Mm.
whether this glory kill would leave me vulnerable to getting shot from behind. I died a couple of times to stuff like that. I was constantly having to move just to avoid getting cornered. It was a totally different experience and a much better one. Although, like, I think I want somewhere between that toughest difficulty and the one I was on. Like, it needed to be
Well,
somewhere in the middle.
yeah, I went in picking the highest available difficulty for Doom 2016, and I thought that was the perfect experience. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I didn't notice this. I didn't know this until we were kind of comparing notes this morning, but I was talking about how I really loved the glory kills because there's a risk reward because the enemies will still try and kill you as you're doing them, and you were like, oh no, on my difficulty they didn't do that, and I was just like, oh, that's such a fundamental
Yeah.
shift in the way that you experience the game. And yes, like I'm a little it does make me feel a little bit sour, but on the other hand, the alternative to that is like difficulties just scale how spongy the enemies are. That's obviously not what I want. Like
Yeah.
this is kind of what difficulties should be, which is changing some of the mechanics to change the amount of intensity that the game requires, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wish I'd played on the difficulty you did,
Mm,
at the end, of things. And like, we're going to talk about Doom Eternal a bunch this stream as well because we both played like the first like quarter of it.
yeah.
And that was a game that definitely felt like it was more of a conscious effort to force you to play in a doomy way, even on the lower difficulty. I'm still on
Mm,
that easier difficulty in Doom Eternal, but there are a bunch of extra mechanics designed to force me to play it the way they want. And usually I
I
don't like games forcing you to play the way they want you to, but
yeah.
I think in this one it's actually a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's an element of the game wants you to have this frantic feeling, and so
Yeah.
it needs to kind of push you out of your comfort zone to
Yes.
get there, because otherwise you will just do things that are safe, and it wants you to, it's a hard thing to balance, right? I think
Yeah.
this game does really well with its difficulty to do that.
I think it's such a clear idea. Like as you said, there's that clear vision of they want you to be moving. They want you to be a bit frantic and juggling
Mm,
multiple concerns.
yeah.
And so, like the fact that that design ethos is so clearly captured
Mm.
means that you're more forgiving when they're sort of forcing it on you.
Yeah, this conversation is definitely making me feel like they did a very good job of not just the difficulty settings, but also the way that kind of the game naturally responds to how you're doing. E.g., as you get to lower health, your glory kills will give you more back, right? As
Yeah.
a way of just kind of making sure that it balances out things like that. And I suspect there's a few things like that the game will do that you don't necessarily notice and it doesn't necessarily tell you, but just lean to you always being on that ideal sweet spot of like 40% or 50% health, right? So
Yeah.
you're always
Yeah.
stressed out, but never actually gonna, have to replay or whatever, which is that sweet spot.
Yeah. I will
It
say
does a
as
lot of
well.
cool things to make that happen.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. I will say on that toughest difficulty as well, there was a really fun mechanic. So on Ultra Nightmare, when you die, you go back to the start of the game. Like
Oh
it's roguelike Doom.
shit.
And so there was like I was just trying to finish. I had to finish the first level to get the achievement I was going for, and I kept dying about 2/3 of the way through the first level. So I really had
Oh.
to like reevaluate how I was approaching the level as a whole, which added like a whole new dimension. So that really speaks to what you're talking about like, with these difficulties. They weren't just like bullet sponging and increasing or decreasing your health. Like
Mm,
that tough difficulty had an interesting mechanic like that.
mm.
Um,
That sounds pretty brutal, but
Oh yeah, like I mean, that I finished the first level, died immediately in the second one, and was like, I'm done with this forever. I
and
got
so
my
you would have had to go
achievement.
back to the first level again.
Yes, yeah. Like
Oh
you're
God.
it's basically the highest level of difficulty, and you're meant to get through the whole campaign without dying. Um,
Wow.
it's insane, but like it was
Rough.
really fun as an experiment for to do the first level. I'm glad they had an achievement for doing the first level in it.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, no, I think the difficulty level you played on is the ideal.
Always my advice, Elliot, always pick the hardest difficulty level and turn it down if you get stuck. That's what I think
That
leads to
makes
the
sense.
best experience.
Um,
Anyway,
So
so
one last thing before we get more specific on the combat, though. So I just want to call out. There's no scoping in this one. Like
mm,
you don't look through the scope. There's no difference between
yeah,
firing from the hip and the scope, and that
some
really
guns
threw
do
me
have
off.
that, but yeah, mostly don't.
Yeah, I don't think I played many first person shooters that don't do that. The other one would be Metroid Prime, but especially if you play it on the Wii controls, it's like a whole separate issue. It took me about half the campaign before I was comfortable with the fact that firing from the hip is the point.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because I'm also kind of in that mindset, and what that led to, I think, is me using guns like the pistol, where you can look down sights, or the like the I forget what it's called, the Gauss cannon, I think it's called.
Yeah, when
Um,
it has like its super shot mode, precision
yeah,
shot something. Yeah,
because I really like just kind of like standing there scoping and popping off a weak point on an enemy.
yeah,
But the game doesn't, again, the game doesn't want you to do that. The game wants you to run
yeah,
in and blast shit with your chain gun, or, fire some rockets and then charge in with your shotgun. Like, it wants you to be very active. And so I think it's good that they still give you some of that so you can kind of take a few pot shots before you hone in with a shotgun or whatever. But it doesn't let you just do that, which I think is
yeah,
great.
yeah. Absolutely agree. Um,
Um, so yeah, I mean, the other part of this combat obviously is like the weapons and the variety of the weapons.
yeah.
So I think we should touch on those. Let's roll this clip, shall we?
Okay. Ooh, what is my favorite weapon? That's a good question. It's got I don't know. I'm looking at all of them and I want to say it's pretty much anything but the pistol.
I love the pistol, Elliot. Just quickly.
Yeah, I remember. I knew this was going to be a fight.
um, but I pulled out this clip just because, like, I think something that this game does really, really well is the weapons all have different strengths and weaknesses, and the ammo is never, except maybe towards the very end when you've got full upgrades, never enough so that you can just stick to the one or two weapons that naturally fit your playstyle.
Mm,
You have to switch it up. You have to switch to rockets for some larger things. You kind of get these triggers in your mind of like, oh, it's this kind of enemy. I'm going to swap to this weapon, which I know helps me deal with them quite nicely, right?
yeah,
Oh, it's a pinky. I'm going to take my shotgun out and then kind of get
get
around them and
behind it.
blast them a few times from behind.
Yeah,
Like things like that the game does really well to keep you, um, keep you on your toes, keep you mixing things up, and never letting you get too comfortable, which I guess is the name of the game. I just thought did it really, really well.
see, I, I, I might be bringing an opinion that has formed over 20 years of playing Ratchet and Clank that I wish that series would fix here. I don't think Doom. I would change how Doom did it a fair bit personally. Like
Mm,
and again, this might be the difficulty setting as well. I kind of found I basically only ever needed to use three, maybe four weapons. Like I would use the rocket launcher and the shotgun on big enemies, and then basically just the plasma rifle and the machine gun sort of ones on little ones. But like
mm,
it kind of felt like I was basically just choosing which big hit weapon do I want to use right now and which like fast many hit weapon do I want to use right now. And I kind of just picked those based on how I felt today and like how my ammo was looking. But there wasn't like I didn't feel that there was a fundamental difference between how I used the plasma gun, the plasma rifle, and how I used like the heavy assault rifle.
mm.
And like to go back to like I've been playing Halo with Kipos recently, and this is my first time ever playing those games, and they have a really fun mechanic where there's sort of three alien races, and each one you can use weapons from each of them, and each of them have different like rock paper scissory sort of balances. Like if you use a human weapon, that's extra good against the race that like is weak to concussive force. Whereas if you
Mm.
use like the against the flood, you can use the sort of forerunner weapons and they're super effective. And it's really fun because what that means is there's this sort of balance of as you're running around picking up weapons on the battlefield, you sort of thinking, oh, well, it looks like we're about to get swarmed with the flood, so I need to find a forerunner gun to use against them. And
Yeah.
I wish Doom had a bit more of that. Like there was never a sense of like me looking at an enemy and thinking, oh, I wish, like, oh, I need to use the plasma rifle here because that will do X. And Doom Eternal actually addresses this a little bit in a way I really liked. Um,
Mm.
but I wish there'd been incentives for me to use specific guns against specific enemies. rather than just feeling like I had two categories in my head. I had big hitters and fast hitters, and I was just alternating between those two arbitrarily.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously kind of comparing it in my head with Doom Eternal as well. So for those who haven't played, Doom Eternal has systems where some enemies will have very, very overt weaknesses to certain weapons, right?
Yeah,
So like the Beholder enemies, if you shoot a little grenade with your shotgun into their mouth, it'll allow you to instantly glory kill them. Or
yeah,
the enemies with the kind of energy shields, if you use your plasma weapon on them, they basically explode. Um,
and that's a
and
little bit like clunky. Like that's a very
yeah, that's what I
obtuse
was going to say.
implementation of what I'm after.
It's
Um,
too
yeah,
it's too rock paper scissorsy. Whereas
yes,
I think the prime example to me is the pinkies in Doom. The fact that you can just like because of the way that those enemies work, it naturally makes you want to switch to a shotgun and just kind of zip around them and then blast them in the butt with your shotgun. And that's
yeah,
just like a nice straightforward one. And there are a few others like the ones that are like the flying witches or
yeah,
also the ones that have like the flying rocket mounted shoulder cannon thing,
yeah.
shoulder
The
rocket cannons.
Revenants, I think they're called. Yeah,
Yeah, both of those I would use like my Gauss cannon on, for example, because I'd be kind of mid to long distance from them, so I kind of snipe them and blast them.
yeah,
Like there are a few like that, but you're right. I think it could be more to force you to switch it up more, or even have the ammo constraint be a little bit harsher, and maybe that's a
yeah.
function of difficulty.
Like thinking on it, what I kind of came up with, like trying to think about how I'd implement something like this was so something that kind of sat funny with me the whole time I was playing through this game was the shared ammo. Because I never
Mm,
really felt like that. Again, like the guns that shared ammo were often so similar that it never really changed how I had to play. The one exception was the Gauss cannon and the plasma rifle
yeah.
sharing ammo because one of those is a fast hit weapon and one's a big hit weapon. But like,
Hmm.
the two shotguns and like the chain gun and the heavy assault rifle, like
Sure.
I never
They're for
felt like I was
similar purposes, I
yeah,
suppose.
exactly. Like I almost think you want to share ammo with weapons that kind of have different things because there'd be a cool balance. Like one of the neat things in Doom Eternal is the Caco demons. You need to throw the grenades at them. If you can't
Hmm.
just throw a straight up grenade, you can also use the grenades from the shotgun.
Yep.
And so I think like stuff like that, like if there are enemies that had weaknesses to say explosions, right?
Mm,
Then you've got the rocket launcher. But if I'm running out of rocket launcher ammo, another way I can do explosive damage is through the shotgun with the explosion mod.
mm, mm,
And that way you're sort of mixing the shared ammo balancing with the fact that like certain enemies need certain kind of damage. And so then yeah, like rather something as simply rock, paper, scissors as like, the guys with shields who use the plasma rifle on them. It's like if they're weak in general to energy weapons, and then there's mods on like the heavy assault rifle to have it shoot energy based stuff. Then you start to like mix up those two concerns, and you're balancing your ammo and also picking weapons based on their mods.
mm. Yeah, I could see it. I don't know. I kind of don't want it to be too. I worry that if it gets too rock paper scissors, it kind of
Yeah,
loses a bit of the joy. So
no, I agree. And like Doom Eternal kind of shoots itself in the foot in that exact way by
yeah,
making it this enemy you basically have to use this weapon on them. Um,
yeah, or you're just shooting yourself in the foot,
Yeah,
as you say.
exactly. But I think there's a nicer middle ground between like the shared ammo turning into something that causes you to have to really think about what weapons you're using based on what levels of ammo you have in different things. Whereas
Yeah,
as it stands in Doom 2016, I don't really understand what the shared ammo achieved.
yeah, for sure. I get what you mean there. I think the thing that I thought was good about it was it meant I didn't have to keep track of more than four ammo types or
Yeah,
whatever.
for
But you're
sure.
right that um, beyond that, it's a bit arbitrary.
Yeah, like the difference between the shotgun and well, I mean, the super shotgun particularly stands out as one where it's just like once that was introduced, I was like, why do I ever want the shotgun now?
Mm,
And the chain rifle and the heavy assault rifle, there was like a bit of a difference there because the chain gun is going to get through my ammo quicker.
yeah,
It's even more spray and pray, but that just felt like such a minute difference. I almost always picked the heavy assault rifle. Like,
The problem you missed out on there, Elliot, is the mobile turret upgrade for the chain gun is the most fun you can have in this game
I,
because you
I
shoot about 1 million bullets in about 2 seconds,
I
and
used
it's
that a bit.
delightful.
I don't know. I thought that was fine, but yeah, I like again. I just there's got to be a better way of making shared ammo turn into this. Like I feel like between shared ammo and like enemy weaknesses, there's a way to make this so that you have to really care about what guns you're using in a fun way. And I just feel like the game hasn't quite found that balance yet.
Mm,
If I
mm,
was making Doom 3, like that would be my main goal is figuring out how to make that a bigger concern that you have to manage as you go through rather than just, yeah, sort of being able to pick kind of whatever and feel like it's going fine.
yeah. Problematically, I think Doom Eternal takes a step away from the optimal thing.
Yes, yeah. Well, I
Um,
think they overshot the other way. There's the answer that I want is somewhere in between the two games.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
last thing, just I put this under weapons. I don't know if it really is about weapons or whatever, but power ups. There's power
yeah.
ups in this game. I don't like. My question is why.
Well, so I think you and I probably had the same experience with power-ups, which is clear a room, check the map, see, oh, there's a power-up here, and then go get it, and then walk around with double damage and there's no enemies around for the next 60 seconds.
That was a
Um,
that was a problem. But even then, just like just having something like invulnerability for a minute, it just kind of it's a fun gimmick the first time you come across it. But
yeah,
like that
it
sort of
takes away from the franticness, doesn't it? It makes
yeah
it less. Yeah, I think the one that I really liked was the one, I think it's called Berserk or something, where you just go around beating, like you basically just glory kill
yeah
for
that one's
whatever.
fun.
That's delightful. But you're right. The other ones to me are just kind of a bit weird. Like, oh, now you do more damage, or oh, now you move faster. And it's like, yeah,
What
okay. I mean, I guess.
that's the thing. Like they either felt yeah like the move fast on, or it's like okay this is neat I guess, or things like the berserk or invulnerable are really fun the first two times you get them. And then it's just kind of like, but there's no replay value. Like if there'd been 10 berserks in the campaign, it just loses all the magic by about the fourth time.
Mm.
I don't know. It very much felt like a gimmick where it was like you include this 2 to 3 times in the campaign, I guess, but like I I don't think it was necessary. I don't really get what it actually added to the game.
Yeah, I guess it's just a thing to kind of keep some parts a little bit fresh, right? It's also worth noting that I think you and I played this game in a very kind of methodical way of like, we go in, we clear a room, we search for secrets, then we go pick the next room
Yeah.
we're going to go to, do the same thing. Whereas I think the power-ups were there more for the kinds of people that are like storming through things, not there to collect, but just there to kind of fuck shit up.
Yeah,
I
that's fair.
suspect it would
That's
have
fair.
served their play styles more.
Yeah, we got a lot of people repping Berserk in the chat. Although,
I think Berserk is very fun. Like the fact that it changes the game to now you only glory kill things for a bit and you just go around ripping the shit out of demons. Like it's fun when you see that,
yeah,
You don't want it all the time, but
no,
yeah.
I think they did balance it well. I think there's like maybe 3 or 4 of them in the whole game, and that's the
Yeah.
perfect number.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tech Cake is a lie brings up that in Eternal, Berserk mode only had one glory kill animation per enemy, which like really sort of drags down the experience for sure.
Mm, mm, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think we'll talk about Eternal more as we keep going.
yeah. Um,
um,
but yeah, we should talk about like because the other half of combat is really non-weapon based combat. It's like all the other stuff around the weapons.
yeah.
Like so power ups probably would be the first side of that. I should be talking about them while this clip's playing. But what
Yeah,
else
but
have you
then
got?
there's the chainsaw and grenades and stuff like that.
Yeah, the
Um,
grenades. Can we talk about the grenades? Did
mm.
you ever use grenades?
I did, but pretty rarely.
Yeah,
Like I always used them when I used them because I remembered that I had them and
yeah.
not because I was like, oh, a
I
grenade is
need
right
them.
in this situation.
Okay, good. So it's not just me. Yeah, like I guess I had like a rocket launcher. I didn't quite understand. The only time I really used any grenade thing is when I got the duplicate one, like the one that puts a.
Mm,
I actually
the
got some
clone.
good use out of like if I was feeling overwhelmed, I would put a body double somewhere and just run and hide for a bit.
I
Um,
tried that, but it never really seemed to work how I wanted it to,
it was
you
very
know?
inconsistent whether enemies would like look at him versus me or not. I didn't understand
Mm.
what the decision point was, which was a bit frustrating.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the grenades got a bit better again in Eternal. There was the ice bomb. That one's actually really useful.
Yes. The
Um,
ice bomb is incredibly useful.
uh,
um,
the
to
chainsaw
touch on
though,
the
should we talk on the chainsaw? Because I think
yeah,
that's
chainsaw is
genius.
great. Yeah,
It,
it's
it
so good, so
it
clever.
takes the same concept of glory kills where
Mm,
they want you to get in the midst of things, and
yeah,
just adds a different way. And like the way it rewards you with ammo, it's the same thing as the glory kills. Really, like it rewards you for getting in amongst them and like really meleeing people.
yeah.
Um,
It's another mechanic where when one playstyle starts to falter because of a constraint, e.g., you're running out of health or you're running out of ammo, it forces you to do something to mix it up,
yeah,
and
and to
that
get
means that
amongst it.
yeah, exactly. I really hated just a quick nitpick about Doom Eternal. Something you can do in Doom 2016 that you can't do in Doom Eternal is just kind of hold your chainsaw out and then run into enemies with it. Whereas in Doom Eternal, you have to like press it and it just kind of does a piddly little swipe in front of you animation if it fails, and it feels so much less fun.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, it's not a weapon you equip in oh god, that fucking elevator. It's not a
yeah,
weapon you equip in Doom Eternal.
yeah,
Yeah, what one thing that really ticked me off at the start of the game was that when you chainsawed someone, it gave you like the ammo that it spawned was not at all based on what ammo you needed. Like it
yeah,
just seems to evenly drop ammo for all the guns. And
yeah,
at first that really pissed me off because I was like, no, I need shotgun ammo. Give me shotgun ammo.
yeah.
Um, but it actually fits into the game's ethos of like that's
Making you
actually the
use
game
different
saying you
weapons.
didn't need to
Yeah,
chainsaw yet, you idiot. Like you still
yeah.
have plenty of plasma rifle ammo.
Yeah, exactly. Don't you're not going to get the all. We're not going to give you a shotgun ammo enough that you can just use the
Yeah,
shotgun,
exactly.
basically.
And I like that. That pissed me off at first because I was playing the game wrong, and I like it took me till about 2/3 of the way through to be like, oh no, the chainsaw's trying to tell me that I'm using it too early.
Yeah, you need to get ready to engage with the game on its terms for sure.
Yeah.
Unlike things like in this clip where you just run around with the pistol, which is the way I wanted to engage with the game.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to call out from combat that's not weapon related?
I mean, you know, I think Doom 2016 had the perfect blend of, sorry, not the perfect blend, like the perfect number of things. Um, not too many things that you don't start to forget about them, or you know, you just kind of start to forget about equipment sometimes, for
Yeah.
example. But you're right on the borderline. Whereas I think Doom Eternal ran into the problem of giving you like four more things that you can do in combat, and then I forgot about all of them.
See, that's interesting. I've taken to the flamethrower in Doom Eternal more than I ever have the chainsaw because I really like getting extra armor.
Mm.
Um,
I like it conceptually, but I think they gave you too many things in Doom Eternal. Like, I don't know. Cut down the number of things.
yeah, I think that's fair.
Like if the chainsaw gave you armor as well as ammo, and they just kind of or you know, they combine the flamethrower and the chainsaw somehow, like that would have been probably fine. You don't need two separate loading bars. In Doom Eternal, you have like 6 or 8 different loading kind of
yeah,
cooldowns, right?
I've been getting quite into that. I don't know. Let's talk about that more
Mm.
when Doom Eternal.
Yeah,
We're talking about
fair
it
enough.
properly. But yeah, I do just want to call out like the gory kills we've talked about from a game design how they're so great because they force you to like get in amongst it as well. But also they're just visually like it's very fun just watching these
Oh
demons get
yeah,
torn to shit. And
and the
what I
amount
loved
of
is when
contextual responsiveness.
yeah, and what I loved is like when demons gory kill you back. Like there's a number of
Yeah,
times if a demon kills you while it's close, they will do a gory kill on you. I thought that was a very fun. The first time that happened
yeah,
to me, I was like, oh my god, really?
yeah.
Um,
It's hilarious. It's very good.
which is like definitely a big part of the ethos of this game. It's just like it wants unapologetically over the top, in a
Yeah,
very cool way.
yeah. It lets itself just go crazy with stuff, and that's what's so good about it.
Yeah. So let's talk about enemy variety.
Yeah,
I quite liked it overall. I thought there was a good amount of like I was constantly getting introduced to new enemies in a way that didn't feel overwhelming, but also like it was like as soon as it started to feel like I was getting stale in how I was approaching all the enemies, they'd introduce something
Mm.
like the Pinkies or the Hell Barons or whatever.
Yeah, I think the enemies all represent different enough types of threats that you're constantly kind of on your toes. You'll see
Yeah.
a one of the, I don't know what they're called again. I keep calling them the witches, but the ones that shoot magic
Oh, the
blasts at
Summoner.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. And you'll be like, okay, I need to kind of change my play style to blast them before they teleport away. And then you'll kind of lose focus for a second on the pinky that is charging at
Yeah.
you. And there's enough constant threat of different types that things are always kind of mixing you up. And I think it works very well in that regard.
Yeah, I feel like the one time I felt like, oh, they've run out of enemy ideas was when they introduced the acidic Mancubuses. And I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, we finally hit the point where they're just reskinning enemies. Like, okay.
But yeah, but I liked that because that was an enemy that you maybe only saw like,
I was right at the
I
end.
don't know,
Yeah.
not, you don't see them that much, right? There's maybe like eight of them in the game, or maybe not that few, but quite few. Enough that when they show up, you're like, oh shit's gotten real. Like this is the really dangerous enemy I need to worry about.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they use them quite heavily in the latter few levels, but like,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, overall, I was quite surprised by how even late in the game they'd introduce something like the Pinkies or the Spectres, which are just again
Yeah,
reskinned Pinkies, and there
yeah,
was just enough that I was like, oh, cool, this is different.
yeah, yeah, totally. Some good variety in here. Something that I think is really wild, playing Doom 1993 is like, these are all enemies that were in the game, and I really didn't expect that. Like, I didn't expect how faithful of a remake this is, because it really, really is. And it's crazy. I guess it just goes to show how well designed the original was. That like the general behaviors of these enemies haven't needed to change, and they still work for such a cohesive set of gameplay. I thought it was a testament to the success of it.
I didn't know that. That's actually, you're right. That's quite impressive for a 1993 game to be sort of that tuned into, yeah, how to add variety. That's
Yeah,
yeah.
it was kind of crazy. I was playing it and I was like, oh, well, that's a possessed soldier, that's an imp. Like I could name these enemies that I was seeing in the first level, and it was just because I'd played Doom 2016, and they're legitimately identical. It was kind of wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. I need to play that original Doom. Um, John in the chat is also saying all of the boss fights are apparently the same. Like the
Yes.
Cyber Demon, the Spider Mastermind, Hell Lords. That's cool.
They are, like, the enemies in that are the same. I think it they had, like, the feel of the fights were kind of different. Like the designs of the bosses was the same, yes, but they weren't the same in the sense that the boss fights felt like they were replicated in the same way that the enemy logic was, I guess I would say.
Sure.
Although I've only fought the Hell Lords, I think was the boss I fought in Doom. So maybe some of the later ones are more identical.
I quite liked, just to call out the Hell Lords for a sec. It's a bit of a I attribute it to Dark Souls, but maybe that's not fair. But like this new thing of like you fight a boss and then when you defeat them, you got to fight two more. Um, what I but like usually what happens though is it's like in Dark Souls it'll be like, oh, now you fight two more of the same enemy, or of the same boss, but they're just kind of shittier now in a way that's just like you
Yeah,
notice they die quicker. The
yeah,
Hell Lords in Doom where I really like the implementation of that because it was the same enemy. This time they didn't have the shield that had held me back against the first one.
mm,
So it was like I just really appreciated that it was like, yeah, it's the same enemy now, but like here's a very distinct, noticeable difference as to why you
yeah.
can handle two of them. As opposed to in
Instead
Dark
of this
Souls,
one having two weapons, it's two with one weapon each, and it's
yeah.
an upgrade, but still kind of in a logical progression.
Yeah, just yeah. Whereas in Dark Souls, it'd just sort of be like one of the things that really irks me in Dark Souls is enemies that just suddenly have more or less health for no reason. Like there's
Mm,
no visual indication. I thought this was a great implementation of doing something like that.
yeah, definitely.
I was sort of quite with the enemy variety. I think part of why it feels so great in Doom is stuff like the chainsaw and the gory kill, because those are
Mm,
balanced based on the enemies. Like the chainsaw doesn't work against stronger enemies as well.
yeah,
And like glory killing meant like things like possessed and imps, like the really shit enemies that were littering the battlefield later on. They were still important, and they were part of like the combat puzzle Doom was building. Because like I would
yeah,
leave imps alive so that when I started to run out of health because the Kekar demons and the Mancubuses were kicking my ass, then I could just
Yeah.
quickly go glory kill a couple of imps for free health.
Yeah, 100%. It's a really clever way of meaning that these enemies that don't pose any actual threat, or will kind of chip in but never really do anything, are actually very important because they're the ways that you can get health and ammo back
Yeah,
in a pinch.
as opposed to just like being something I either leave to the last minute and clean up, or
Mm,
like just start by eliminating them all. Like they're still a consideration, and I've never seen that before. I've never had
yeah,
the small enemies actually feel like they matter.
yeah,
Um,
100%.
I, as well, like the level above that as well, because the demons do friendly fire. Like I remember getting really pissed
Yeah,
off when a pinky would kill a bunch of possessed or imps because like, no, you fucker, I was saving those.
yeah,
Like,
those were mine. Or you'll wander through hell and you'll see like a pinky fighting a hell baron, and you just kind of watch it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If there's parts of this game that almost feel like a wildlife documentary where you're just watching two animals fight, and
Doom snap.
it's really fun.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I was really impressed by the way this was built so that the shitty enemies still matter right at the end.
Yeah,
It made me feel more powerful, and then also, yeah, not like I was outgrowing the enemies that are throwing at me.
yeah, 100%. Um, should we talk about the design of the levels as a whole? I mean,
Yeah.
so here's the thing about this game is like we talked about the combat to start with, but all of this stuff is so interlinked to give
Yes.
the
Yeah.
feeling of this game. Like, I guess my thesis for this game is like it's doing some really cool, innovative things, but most of it is just really well done, well polished gameplay. Like
Yeah.
systems that work really well together. Nothing too crazy. Some innovative things, but mostly, nothing absolutely wild, but just done really, really well.
Yeah. I will say, like, because yeah, I agree. Like, something that really stood out to me is by the end of the campaign, I had not felt like there was a pattern or a system for how they built the, I guess I'd call them arenas. Like, so much of the
Mm,
game is like do a bit of exploration, then you enter an arena to fight people. But the design layouts of all those arenas were so varied, like that didn't grow tiring. And that's actually quite
yeah.
impressive. Like that it didn't start to feel like, oh great, another pit. Whereas again, to compare it to Halo, there's so many rooms where I'm just like, I swear we've fought enemies in this room before. Like,
Yeah, you're right. I can't even quite put my finger on what it is, but the arenas feel like they do have. Maybe it's just because it's one, the enemy variety, and two, like a few different bits of verticality that they put in each arena to make sure that there's kind of nice flows of movement. But
yeah,
yeah, the polish in this game, making sure that it never drags on too much, is very, very impressive because I've
yeah,
played a lot of games like this one where you get bored very easily.
yeah. I think it's easy to underestimate how fine a hand was needed to
Yeah,
create that balance. It's actually really impressive.
yeah, 100%.
I will say I got a little disappointed in some of the later levels because I feel like the game, for at least the second two thirds, was quite linear in the sense that a level was like, a bit of platforming, then one of these arenas
Mm.
or whatever. And like that's a simplification, but like my favorite level is the one that we're seeing on screen now, and that's the reason it's on screen now. I think it's called the Foundry. It's like level
Mm.
3, and you basically get put in this base with 4 nests, and you have to decide the order in which you tackle them. And it's a
Mm.
bit of like it felt like a Zelda dungeon, to be honest. Like I had to
Mm.
run around to get keys to unlock places. And I was a little disappointed that the second half of the game kind of left that level design philosophy behind. And Doom Eternal so
Yeah,
far exactly the same. It's all just like linear levels that you can then
fairly
backtrack through.
linear. Yeah.
Um, I really wish the game had spent more time doing things like the Foundry, which is it's really the same gameplay loop, but adding that Metroidvania Zelda dungeony vibe to
Yeah.
level traversal.
Feels very interconnected. You'll
Yeah,
open up a door and come out to someone and be like, "Oh, so this is where this connects to," kind of vibe.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right. That did happen a lot in this level, and it was quite, uh, yeah, quite satisfying when it did.
I wish they'd done more of it. It was far and away my favorite level because that's the gameplay loop I live for. Is like Zelda
Mm.
dungeon Metroidvania.
This
Um,
thing about, oh, okay, which door does this unlock, and now
yeah.
what will that give me access to? Yeah.
Whereas the only thing that was sort of hitting that switch in the later levels was like the secrets, because you're basically just keeping an eye out for them on your run.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, speaking of,
well, yeah, I do also just want to talk about the map quickly as we get into
yeah.
this, just because I don't like it. I mean, it's so
Mm.
close to being good, but there's just like the camera when you're viewing the map was just made it often awkward. It was really bad for vertical spaces, the
Mm.
way they laid it out. I don't know. Like, Metroid Prime is like 15 years old and is still my gold standard for how to do 3D maps in a video game. And I really wish
Mm.
everyone would just blatantly plagiarize from them rather than try to do their own thing, because it was so good. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it just didn't handle vertical stuff. Also, it was a completely separate geometry, which meant some of the maps were just straight up misleading. Like, there are a few Doom
Yes.
rooms that were just like incorrectly on the map, and I was like, that's just like a shitty thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Annoying. Yeah. The map. You're right. There are sometimes where it's very helpful. I got into a habit of just play for a few minutes, open the map, quick look around to see if I've missed any secrets, then keep going. And it did pretty well for that. But there was sometimes where you were just like, it says that there's a door here, or I should be able to go through here, or there's a secret here, and I just do not,
Yeah.
like, I just cannot get it.
Um, yeah, 100%. Like, it just, especially on the more vertical levels, like parts of the Foundry were basically indecipherable on the map because the
Mm.
levels were too close together vertically, and you just couldn't get the camera to let you look at it right.
Yeah.
Um, I, I also, I suppose, as an aside to that as well, just first person platforming. Doom is good at it, but it's just like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like decorating something in shit. Like, I don't like first person platforming. The amount of ledge grabs I missed just because I was trying to look at where I want to go next, like
Mm.
tying what you can see to the direction you're going in, just frustrates me.
Yeah, for platforming for sure. I think Doom was at its best when there is nice intuitive platforming mid-fight. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
there's an enemy over there, I've got to jump over to it. And that always felt pretty natural. When you're trying to like explore a space that needs some 3D platforming, it really is clunky. Like,
yeah.
you don't play games like this for 3D little weird little level puzzles or like platforming puzzles. And Doom 2016, I think, understood that pretty well. uh, Not so in Doom Eternal.
The climbing in Doom Eternal is like the epitome of what I'm complaining about here. Like,
Yeah,
the climbing just is like, I can't stand it because, like, to
yeah,
move up I have to look away from where I want to go, and that you just, like, yeah,
yeah.
it's why
It's
third person
ridiculous.
platforming is the standard.
Not just that though. Like, we're talking about the level design here in Doom Eternal. So often I'll play for a bit and then I'll just come to a room where there's like some completely obtuse puzzle, and I put puzzle in air quotes, I guess, because what it really is, oh, you need to know that you have to hit this lever at the same time as that lever, and I'm like, this is not your lane, Doom Eternal. This isn't what you should be trying to do. You're not good at it. Just go back to having fun gunfights with demons. Don't try and do some weird puzzle that doesn't work.
Yeah. But like, even going to Doom, I was constantly missing ledge grabs and stuff on some of the platforming things, and it just drove me nuts.
Mm.
Like, because I'd start looking away too early. It's like the
Oh
tennis
yeah.
in tennis. You take your eye off the ball because you want to see where you're hitting it, and then you miss the
Mm.
ball.
Yeah.
I was just doing that in Doom all the time.
Mm. Yeah. 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 I can get that for sure.
But enough about the combat.
Mm.
Shall we talk about the story?
Yeah. Elliot, did you expect to go into this game and find yourself really enjoying the story? Oh, sorry. I'll
No.
I'll let this clip roll out first, I
Yeah,
think.
sorry. Let's play this because I think you pulled this one out, didn't you? That's what I think of you and your story.
I'm willing to take full responsibility for the horrible events of the last 24 hours, but you must understand. Our interest in their world was purely for the betterment of mankind. Everything has clearly gotten out of hand now, yes. But it was worth the risk, I assure you.
Yeah. I love Fuck, that was dramatic. I'd forgotten how much I love the story in this game. Watching that.
Yeah, it's. I think so many things to say about this. One, it's so perfectly done. It's
Yeah.
done to just the right level because this is a game that is ridiculous, and the plot is ridiculous as well, of course. But it's like it takes itself just the right level of seriously, and the player takes it just the right level of seriously, which is 5% or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
It's so great.
The gimmick of having a protagonist who doesn't care about the story is such a fun alternative to because video game story 101 is almost like make the protagonist have amnesia. That way we have a reason
Yeah.
to explain everything. And as a
Yeah.
trope, I'm just sick to death of. And this is such a great alternative. It's like he doesn't have amnesia, he just doesn't care, and that's why you don't really follow it because he's
Well,
not interested.
I want to say it's a bit more than him just not caring. I think it can come across as that, but actually what it is to me is the plot of this game is a corporation has continued to take small steps on the path to good, on
The road to hell.
this good intentioned path. I mean, literally, the plot of this story is the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And your protagonist is coming in X years after the fact, 50 years after that path has started, and you see we have literally made a path to hell. And yes, it's for whatever good intention, but it's clearly not. Somewhere along the way, we made too many trade-offs that we shouldn't have, right? And it's effectively, an anti-capitalist plot, which I really liked. And so it's not so much that Mr. Doom guy doesn't care. It's that he doesn't allow the bullshit of corporate narratives to convince him that doing the wrong thing is doing the right thing.
Yeah, no,
I just love that
right,
vibe.
Yeah. He cares too much is almost the problem because he but no, I guess it's just like I just love that mechanic of Hayden will start trying to explain things and tell you what's going on, and Doom Guy's just like, no, I'm gonna pull the cables out and blow it up.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's the codex stuff if you want to read it and get more into it. But I love how that's the overall plot. They give you the bare minimum to understand why you're doing stuff, and then Doom Guy cuts them off from giving you more explicitly.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's we've played games like Dark Souls where it's the reaction that I think people or the developers want the player to have is there's a plot here that I can dive into if I want to.
Yeah,
and that's what this game feels like, but it feels like it executes it much more perfectly, where it gives you enough that you can engage with it if you want to, but it doesn't beat it down your throat, and it just lets you have the moments if you want to have them.
I agree. I much prefer this method of doing it because this encourages you to know more if you want to, whereas Dark Souls felt like it was playing keepaways with the story.
Yeah. This story impacted me. There's only really 3 characters other than you in it, right? There's Olivia Pierce, there's Samu Hayden, and there's Vega. Those are really the only 3 characters in this story.
Killing Vega was actually killing Vega in the second last level.
Yeah,
that was actually upsetting.
Right. It actually genuinely, I formed emotional relationships with these 3 characters.
Yeah.
Hating Hayden and Pierce and caring about Vega, even though I was expecting some very tropey oh, now this AI takes over plot, but that he leaves the game guiding you how to destroy it because it knows that needs to be done, and it's just this really impactful moment, and I just thought that was great.
I was so excited when Doom Guy took the backup at the last second. I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
I will say though, just to talk about the story, because I agree. I absolutely love that. You can tell when they sat down to write the plot for this game, it was they're demons, and they're on Mars, and you could just tell they were just taking the piss out of the concept of story as they were putting it together, and I very much appreciate that. I do think though that sometimes this game tried to make some of that diegetic in a way that just was inconsistent, and I almost wish they'd done less of it. The one that really jumps out to me is I think it's at the start of the second level or maybe the third one. Vega comes into your headset and it's like, oh, I figured out in your suit how to unlock challenges to get weapon points. And I was sort of like, well, okay, that's nonsense. Like, that doesn't make
That's just
sense.
video game shit, Vega. You don't have to
Yeah.
explain that. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I don't like it feels like they tried to cram it in so that they could have Vega explain it to you. Whereas like, something like there's these rooms that you unlock in every level, which have like part of an original Doom level in them. And like that's never explained because it's clearly just video game nonsense and the game doesn't try to justify it. And I prefer that to just like having Vega explain to me why there's power-ups in the game. It's like, no, there's not power-ups in the story. Like this like let there be some ludonarrative dissonance here.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to shit on Doom Eternal while we're here?
I just hated the plot of Doom Eternal so much. I'm about 3 missions or 4 missions in,
Yeah.
and it's just like it feels like it's gone so generic. Like now it's, oh, you have to go and kill the 3 hell priests, blah blah blah, and it's like the kind of ridiculous and stupid plot that Doom, the first Doom, felt like it was intentionally making fun of, and then they've just lent back into it in Doom Eternal, and I'm like, no, this is so bad. It hurts me.
So I would say my problems with Doom Eternal spot. So, and I think we're at the same point. I think we finished the same level. My problem with it is like like Doom Guy as a character now, is a big part of it. Like people are actually talking to him and he's responding.
Yeah. There's a news alert between, I think, the 2nd and 3rd level where somebody on the news is like, oh, and reports of the Doom Guy have come in. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
Oh, no, see, I love those. I love those news reports.
Oh.
They're great. Because it's like, don't try talking to him because he seems to kill nice people as well as demons, which I enjoyed. But no, the big thing for me is like, with all these extra cutscenes in Doom Eternal, the intricacies of the plot are mattering in a way that like I'm just not following. Like I just met some guy called the Betrayer. Who is this guy? Like every character in Doom Eternal for me has been like, we've had dialogue with these characters and I'm like, I don't understand who you are.
Yeah. There have been like 5 forced cutscenes where some ghost has told me about the plot of an ancient sect, and I'm like, this is not what I care about. Do you not understand why people like the first game? It's because it was undercutting this shit and not letting it be so ridiculous.
I just it's that shift. Like Doom 2016 put that bare minimum shit in front of you so that you could understand what you're doing, and then left the rest of it in the codex entries. And Doom Eternal has suddenly moved a lot of that more intricate stuff. Like, now I'm learning about betrayers. I'm like, because those knights, the Knight Templar people, like the Betrayer looks like one of them. They were in Doom 2016. Every time they came in, I was like, that's random. And I'm sure I would have understood it if I read the codex entries. But I didn't need to. All I knew was like, okay, some Templars pointing me where I need to go.
Like, yeah, okay, it's hinting there's like a bigger kind of mysticism, and this is as you're getting into hell and you're understanding that there's a bigger thing to the Doom Guy than just, he's not just some guy, he's actually like...
He was found in hell and like is prophesized.
Yeah, he's effectively a messiah figure that the demons are all horribly afraid of because he's murdered them for millions of years, right? And like that's all you need to know. But now it's like, oh, okay, there's like a secret order of Doom guys, and I'm the one who rebelled against them, and blah. And like, I don't know if that's even right or not. It's just generic enough that I don't care.
That stuff has all moved into the foreground. I feel like that's where Doom Eternal lost me. Is like, they're like, oh, you need to defeat the Khan Maker, and I'm like, you either need to tell me who the fuck that is, or they need to get way less attention in these cutscenes.
Yeah, or just don't. Like, fuck, again, the thing I really liked about Doom 2016 is there's like 3 characters.
Yeah.
And that's why it works so well, because you don't need to know everything. You just need to know, okay, there's these 3 characters and this is the rough role they're playing in the story. And as the story beats unfold, like, oh, Olivia Pierce, oh shit, she's just died. Oh no, but she died to throw herself into hell and open up a portal. Oh shit, I'm seeing a flashback and it's Olivia Pierce and she's doing some cult ritual, and it all kind of tracks. Whereas now I'm like, oh, okay, I see a ghost dog and he's leading me towards a ghost temple.
Why?
And now I have a flashback of a giant king. And I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. What is this?
I agree.
Anyway.
So that was our shitting on Doom Eternal spot segment.
I'm really, like, it's, God, I'm going to rant more about Doom Eternal as we keep going. But legitimately, despite the fact that the gameplay is fundamentally the same,
It loses you.
it's
Yeah.
crazy to me how little interest I have in Doom Eternal. Like, I really wouldn't have thought that all the peripheral stuff makes such a big difference to me, but apparently it does.
No, yeah, I've had the same reaction where I'm like, it's weird because if you made me a list of all the things that actually matter, Doom Eternal is better at all of them, and all the stuff that shouldn't matter, it's gotten worse at, and that stuff has just all added up to the point where Doom Eternal just isn't grabbing me the same way.
Yeah,
And
100%.
yeah, it's confusing me about my own priorities in what I look for in a game. Let's talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the art style of Doom 2016.
yeah.
Let's
Because
go positive again.
well, yeah, I mean, I'll start out by saying when I first started playing Doom, I was kind of a little bit, I was starting to form a pretty negative opinion of it as I was into like the second or third level, because I was like, okay, all of the levels are just me running through this like abandoned slash apocalyptic corporate office, basically. But then it really does start to open up and do some crazier things, like the level where you're climbing up the Argent Tower, and it ends with Olivia Pierce throwing herself into this like
Yeah.
flashing, colorful portal, and then you literally go into hell. I was like, okay, shit, this game is really starting to grab me now, like aesthetically and all of that.
Yeah, I will say like it does sort of fall into that trap of everything's browns and
Yeah,
grays and reds,
yeah,
which Doom Eternal, to its credit, almost immediately avoids. Like
yeah. Like
artistically,
the ammo is colorful in Doom Eternal, and that's
yeah,
like a simple change that makes it, I think,
yeah.
have a lot of different variety.
Oh, even the three levels I played in Doom Eternal, one was like a destroyed city that was visually
Mm,
fantastic. There were giant demons walking around in the background.
yeah.
Then one was like actually quite grassy and green.
Mm,
Not to mention just like the little upgrades that Doom Eternal had with like enemy designs and like the way chunks fly off of them every time you hit them. Like that's fun.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, like no, to go back to the actual Doom. Yeah, I agree. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the visuals, despite it being yet another game that only knows that red, brown, and grey are colors.
Mm,
Um, anyway, the gory kills fit into this. We already talked about them, but like, you know, even things like the gun design, I always knew what gun I had out. Like,
mm.
yeah, surprisingly good work on the visuals.
Yeah, the enemies all had fairly unique kind of silhouettes and were pretty
Yes.
recognizable. I maybe confused a possessed soldier for an imp once or twice, but like they're all very different
Yeah.
shapes, so it's very easy to just be like, oh shit, there's a beholder and a summoner over there, and oh, there's a hell baron or whatever as well.
Yeah, but like even the environment design, I always knew what was important and what wasn't. Like, and I'm not just talking
Yeah,
about things that glow. Like collectibles obviously glow, but like I could often identify a secret path just by looking at the way it was textured, and that's an
yeah.
underrated skill. Like, earlier this month, I was actually in an argument in our Discord about like the new Spyro games. I actually think the Spyro Reimagined trilogy is a graphical downgrade in the sense that everything in it is so attention seeking and attention grabbing.
Mm,
You lose the ability to discern what the secrets are in the game, whereas there was a
mm,
simplicity to the PlayStation 1 graphics because you'd be like, oh, that's clearly important. And I think
mm.
Doom 16 proves that being HD means you can still achieve that.
Yeah, it does a remarkably good job. I mean, like lighting, I guess, is a big part of that. Like,
Yeah.
there are some times when you feel lost in some of the more spirally levels, but you almost always you're able to be like, okay, I know I've got to kill these enemies and then go through that place because I can kind of see the slightly flashing light, or the corner that I can see is lit enough that it's clearly I need to go behind that. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it really technically excels at that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and
the kind of thing
I think
where you
that's
don't
easy to
notice
stuff up.
it
Oh,
unless
sorry.
it's terrible. Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah. So moving on to the other side of the gameplay that we haven't yet talked about, because as well as
Mm.
fighting shit, you're finding shit.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And so just let the audio play
How
for the
do
first
I
few seconds
open
of this
you?
clip. That's probably enough. So this was what this clip's going to go for a while. This is me trying to figure out how to open the Doom door in the first level. But what was your opinion on like the secrets in this game?
So until I watched one of your later streams, didn't know about these Doom doors because my impression was if it's marked on the map, I'll find it. If not, I don't give a shit about it. And I was pretty happy with that. Like I found one or two secrets that I kind of liked. Like I saw there's a Skyrim reference where you find a guard with an arrow in their knee, and it's clearly got a Skyrim helmet. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. So yeah, I really enjoyed the secrets. Like my goal wasn't to 100% the game in the same way that yours, I think, was. But, there was enough there where I could be like, oh, let me check the map and grab a secret while I'm here and kind of poke around. Like, it had just the right level of... It clearly has enough depth that you can dive into it as much as you want to. And I picked my cutoff, and you picked yours, and I think it supported both, which I think was good.
No, that's super interesting to hear, because I'm like a problem completionist. Like, if there's a structure at all like this, I am going to take the fun out of the game seeking 100% completion. That is just how I operate. So it's good to know that, like, because I've definitely played some games, like some of the 3D collectathons I love, like that's my favorite genre, but they're not fun for people who aren't the completionists. Like, they very much only target people like me who want to get all the shinies. It's good to hear that this game still has fun secrets, even if you're not insisting on getting every single one.
Yeah, like I liked finding the dolls, right, which were probably the most hidden of the secrets that I was really bothering with. Like, they're marked on the map, but you often have to kind of find an oblique path to get back to a point or something like that. And I thought that was great, like just a bit more reason to kind of poke around the environment and start looking for a air duct or whatever it ended up being.
Yeah, I really liked the amount as well. Like, as somebody who was trying to get all of them, there were a good variety of types of secrets, and they were spread out enough that I always felt like I was going to come up on something soon.
Except, what about the ones that were just like, sometimes you'd walk on a piece of land and it'd say, "Oh, secret found." Yeah. Did that ever happen to you? And I was like, what did I find?
The concept of secrets in general was very confusing in this game, because there's like the collectibles, like, the game would be like, oh, we've hidden the Praetor tokens and the dolls and whatever else. And then there was separately the concept of secrets. And it took me till about 5 levels and some help from chat to realize that secrets were their own, like, collectible currency. And there was really no definition that I could figure out throughout the game of what qualified something as being a secret. In fact,
it was pretty weird.
Every single doll was inside a secret. So I was like, okay, so what's the point of these being secrets if they've also got a collectible that's on the map in them? Like, why am I getting 2 separate checkboxes for finding this little corridor? There was just a real confusion of purpose for me on what a secret was in this game. And I kind of wish they ditched that entire concept and just stuck with the collectibles. Because, finding things like the upgrade bots, the Praetor tokens, the dolls, that was the really fun part of the loop for me. And the Doom doors. Like, the Doom doors were ones that started to grate me in some levels because the levers were often unreasonably difficult to find.
I found them just hard to see. I would often, once I started looking for them, I would find them, or like I'd search for them, and I'd search in the exact place they were, and then later look up a walkthrough and be like, oh, it was here. And I looked there, it just blended in so much with the background that I didn't like register it.
Yeah, I agree. There were a few levers that felt really good to find, and there were a few where, like, when I looked it up, I was just like, really? And I mean, that's actually a surprisingly difficult line to walk, like, because I feel like a good secret, you need to feel like you've either noticed something or solved an environmental puzzle. And I feel like 90% of the time, Doom does great at that, but a couple of things like the levers feel like the bad kind of secret where you either needed to get lucky or just notice like a really difficult to notice environmental detail.
You just need to look around every single corner rather than there's something special about that corner that makes you want to look around it.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I think Doom had, I would argue, just maybe a few too many collectibles, because I felt like 5 to 10% fit within that range of, like, to me, where it was like, oh, we need to cram something here and we made it too tricky because otherwise it was too obvious.
Yeah.
But that's a really difficult line to walk. I'm not really going to, like, I can't think of a game that I think has consistently done that perfectly.
Yeah, it's hard to do perfectly. I think Doom does a very good job of it.
Yeah, like, even Super Mario Odyssey, to me, always stands as, like, the best collectathon, which is, the genre that I think does this the best. Even it has a few shine.
It has the ones where you have to look at the taxis flying through the sky.
Exactly.
Like, what the fuck is this?
Even it missteps. And it's like, if Mario Odyssey is going to misstep on this, I'm not going to criticize any other game for misstepping on it. It's a tough line to walk. Especially like the thing of whether something is obvious and noticeable is going to change from person to person.
Yeah.
Um,
Talking about collectibles, should we talk about the other kind of thing like that? The other kind of secondary objectives, I suppose, which are the challenges.
yeah,
I
which
really love these.
I see. I think these are a bit more mixed in how they're implemented. I love the concept, but like we're looking at one here. I don't know if maybe it's because I was completionisting them all. There was one on this level where you had to kill 10 enemies with explosive barrels.
Mm.
There were only 3 explosive barrels right at the start of the level, and there were about 11 enemies to kill. So it basically took me about 10 attempts to like game the system to figure out how to get 10 of them to die to them. And that
Mm.
was like the shitty version of the challenges. Whereas in the first half of the game, challenges were like teaching me mechanics.
Mm.
Like I loved some of the ones that were like get 5 different glory kills on imps, because then I was like, oh shit, the glory kills change depending on what part
Yeah.
of them I look at. Like that's
Yeah.
really good to know. I'm glad you taught me that through this challenge. Like that is phenomenal game design. And they teach you things to look at. It was really the last 3 levels where I felt like the challenges just started to get lazy and like not thought out.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I really liked there were definitely some challenges where it would say like, kill 3 enemies at once using this method or whatever.
Yeah.
And it would mean that as I was playing through the level, I would have in the back of my head this thing of like, okay, I need to make sure I look out for where there's 3 imps that are all standing right near each other.
Yeah.
And I found that a really fun kind of secondary kind of thing to be hunting for through a level. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I agree. And that's like that's something that's come across from like Ratchet and Clank does that a bit as well. And I love that, like having you want to be juggling internally in your head, like I reckon 3 to 5 like secondary objectives as you go through a level. And this ties into like the way you upgraded the guns in Doom. Like you to get the final level of the mods, you would have to do very similar things, like get 20 headshots or whatever.
But specifically demonstrating your mastery with the new elements of the gun that you'd unlocked. Yeah.
And my favorite part of the game was probably the third quarter, where I felt like I had a really good balance of like I always had the 3 challenges and 1 or 2 guns that I was finishing modding, and I was trying to balance 4 to 5 concerns secondary to just trying to stay alive. And I reckon that's the sweet spot. And I think the level challenges were mostly good for that. It was just really, the end of the game felt like they phoned it in. Like the last level is basically, I think like it's 3 challenges. Is like, one is like kill 25 with the BFG, kill 2 things with 1 shot, which basically requires you to use the BFG for it. And then the other one was like find the 3 secrets, which was like,
yeah.
Why
is that
secrets.
a challenge?
Yeah,
that's already something I'm doing. Yeah. Those are weird ones.
So sure. Just the last few levels like that, just kind of felt like they phoned it in a bit.
Having said that, Elliot, could be worse.
I mean, well, yeah, you could have none. I assume that's where you're going.
Or fucking hell again, Doom Eternal. Oh. Can I? Okay.
So
we're just going to go
the reason we feel so strong about Doom Eternal, this was my exact response to Dark Souls, which is where I was like, I feel like I should love this game, and I really want to love this game, and it keeps doing things to make me stop liking it. And like that's why you feel so strongly about like hating on Doom Eternal, is because it's nitpicky stuff that's stopping you from liking it. I have this like, I guess I'd call it fan fiction in my head. Fan fiction of what happened at id. And here's what happened. They were like, hey, some crack team of crackpots at id said, hey, Doom, that's something, right? Hey, why don't we try and do that? And the senior management at id was like, oh, that's a crazy idea. It's too outdated. People won't want it. They want Fortnite nowadays, blah, blah, blah. And so they were kind of allowed to go off and do it in their own little corner, and they did it, and everyone fucking loved it. And so then the senior management. So you give me similar vibes to I think it was it Shrek at DreamWorks, where that was like the shit project.
Fuck yes. Doom is the Shrek of video games, because like then what happens is Doom is successful and they go to Doom, and this doesn't quite track because Shrek 2 is also delightful, but slightly from Shrek 2 to let's say Shrek 3, right? Doom was successful, and so for Doom Eternal, they're like, oh yeah, let's do that again. But here now we're gonna get our little executive fingers in it and really start making sure it's got all the latest,
Like
oh, it
games
has
as
to
a
use
service.
Bethesda Net, and you have to, oh, what about replayability? So instead of doing these mission-based challenges, why don't we have these replayable daily and weekly challenges that are completely soulless and disconnected from the actual levels that you're playing,
Because
but
they
just
need to
have
be
random things.
auto-generated.
Yeah. And it's like legitimately, and I mean, we talked about the plot, and it's the same thing. We're like, oh no, this plot, we can't have an anti-capitalist plot in a major release of a video game. We're a corporation. So instead they have to go, oh, well, what people really liked is, the hell demons and having a cool badass guy who goes around punching hell demons in the face. And it's like, legitimately, it feels like Doom Eternal is what Doom would be like if it had no soul. Legitimately, like, I hate Doom Eternal. Just feels so soulless to me. It's clearly well made, and the gameplay is great, but the soul of the game that made Doom so captivating is just completely gone, and it makes me really sad.
Yeah, like I feel like such a hipster, but it really feels like Doom Eternal went mainstream. Like the first one did better than they
Yes.
expected, and then they got the bigger budget. Like you see it happen with movies a lot as well. Like some
Yeah.
movies that are made on a like dime, and then they do well, and then the sequel just like gets like focus group to death. And
Yeah.
Doom Eternal feels a bit like that.
Yeah. Like, I started Doom Eternal. I did the first level and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And then I played, and then I go back to the like hub and I'm like, wait, I'm now on a giant floating cathedral. That's kind of cool. But there's like 100 million things to do in it. And
Yeah.
they're all just like, oh, okay, now I've got like, I find a new weapon and then I have like 30 seconds of tutorial for every new thing that I unlock for the first like 5 hours of the game.
The
And I'm like,
tutorials in Doom
no.
Eternal are particularly clunky.
Yeah. Or like the collectibles even feel a bit more soulless. Like the UI is like weirdly trying to be cool and from Doom, but goes so overboard that it's just like unusable. Like, I'm talking about the menu UI, sorry about
Yeah.
that. But like, fuck. So many things just feel like, no, you just didn't get it. You didn't get why this was good.
Yeah, I think I have more mixed feelings about Doom than you do. Sorry, Eternal than you do.
Mm.
But I definitely agree that there's just a bunch of these things where I'm just like, why? Like this feels like a step backwards. Why have you done this?
Yeah.
With things like the menu. Like God, we're seeing this footage right now, and I'm constantly getting hit with tutorial things that stop the gameplay,
Yeah.
interrupt it.
Constantly. It
Um,
just doesn't let itself be a cool, fun game.
which is a shame because as we talked about, I think the actual on the ground gameplay is universally better.
Yeah.
Like I touched on it already, but Doom Eternal is just straight up a bit harder and like was doing more work to force me to play it the way Doom wanted me to. Like that vibe I talked about on like extra hard mode on Doom, forcing me to play it the way they wanted me to. Doom Eternal just achieves that naturally, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I like the new weapon mods. I love the way little bits of demons come out of them every time you shoot them, and like now there's things like with the Mancubuses, I want to shoot their cannons to weaken them. The
Yeah.
Revenants, you can shoot off their cannons. These are all across the board improvements.
So yeah, I agree with the combat, right? For the
Yeah.
combat, yes. And because you're describing it as the actual on the ground gameplay. And I think that's disingenuous because one of the problems with Doom Eternal is it tries to make the gameplay not just the combat. It tries to add too many things like, oh, now you have to do puzzles where you're like climbing around fucking like Spider-Man or like swinging around on ropes
Yeah.
like Super Nintendo Aladdin. And I'm like, no, this isn't what I want.
Yeah, they increased the platforming sections in a way that isn't as fun. Like it took the worst parts of the platforming and exacerbated them, I think.
Yeah.
But the combat itself, and the annoying thing is, all those platform improvements though are great in the combat. Like the swinging bars,
Oh yeah.
are
Yes.
fantastic in the combat. And then
Yeah.
when they're in
Yeah.
like platforming sections, I'm like, I fucking hate this.
Yeah, exactly right. If it was just those things for the combat, I would be so thrilled with them.
Yeah.
But no, they have to take them and make them kind of platforming sections as
The
well.
the dash is another one. I love the dash in combat. Can't
In
fucking
combat,
stand
yes.
it in platforming. Yeah.
I'm 100% with you there. But Doom Eternal, let's not talk about it. Let's not think about it. I don't like it.
I'll probably go back and finish it one day, but like I think after marathoning Doom, I'm going to take a break. And there is a new Ratchet and Clank game out that I haven't played yet, and that's going to tick those boxes too. So I'll wait a while. I'm sure there'll be a Doom 3 soon as well. I'll be interested to see what that looks like.
Yeah. Talking about other Doom games, I guess it's worth touching on Doom, OG 93 Doom, because like I played it and I really enjoyed it, not just for seeing how it went into and influenced Doom 2016, but for the same reasons I liked Doom 2016. It scratched the exact same itch, and I thought that was wonderful. It gave me mad motion sickness, like to a huge degree, which means that I probably won't be able to play any more than I did, which I think was about I played the first episode of like 4 episodes or whatever. And I probably won't be able to go back and play it just because it completely wiped me out. I was like in bed for the rest of that night, but it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's a shame. I'm so interested. I really got to play this because I'm flabbergasted that so much of the ethos of Doom 2016 is in that game. Because I really thought that so much of Doom 2016 I thought came as a response to the rest of the industry. Whereas now I'm realizing what probably happened is internally at id, people were like, it was that response, but rather than just like, oh, let's pick Doom arbitrarily, it was very much like, Doom did the opposite of this, let's redo it.
Yeah, let's go back to the basics, really.
Whereas I kind of had pictured it in my head as they decided to make a new Doom game, and then they looked at the industry and decided what they wanted to steer away from, and that's clearly not how it quite went down. And I'd love to explore that.
Yeah.
Rather than play the original,
I would recommend it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Rather than play the original, I decided to dip into a subset of the group that made the 2016 Doom in 2018. Got back together and made like a VR version of Doom. And obviously, since my day job partially consists of evaluating VR games, I decided to try it out. And it's so cool, but also I was playing it on PlayStation Move, which is like control wise far and away the worst VR system. Actually, that's not true. Vive is terrible. But like Doom VR was so close to being a 10 out of 10 experience, but shot itself in the foot in a couple of ways. But I seriously, if any of you have like an Oculus or a Valve Index, I'd probably recommend trying it out if it's cheap. VR has a way of bringing models out in a really different way that's really cool. Like seeing a Mancubus and really appreciating that they're 12 feet tall because one of them's standing right next to you is fucking incredible. And I can imagine. I've flinched a number of times when a lost soul charged me, and then blew up right in front of my face. The imps actually being the size of you. I didn't realize the armor slabs that picking up on the ground, they're legitimately like this big. Like they're huge.
Like the green, the green armor. Yeah.
That's the sort of thing. Like again, I guess I'm bringing my day job into this, but there's weird art design considerations in VR that you don't think about in regular 3D because you perceive dimensions very differently in VR.
Yes.
And so the way they reuse the art, I feel like actually highlighted to me stuff I had not appreciated playing regular Doom. Stuff like how big the Mancubuses are, how big a lot of other things are, just because you perceive that size differently in VR. Like glory killing stuff by teleporting into it was very fun. I absolutely think there's a lot of potential in Doom VR. I don't think this kind of what I assume was quite a cheap port in 2018 achieved it, but I'd love to see them try it again with modern hardware. Also, half of it's my fault. I was playing on PlayStation Move, which is one of the worst headsets. So I did shoot myself in the foot there, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay. Cool. Yeah, it sounds fun. Anything else we want to touch on for Doom? Any questions from chat? Does anyone have any questions as well while we're just wrapping up? Pop them in chat and we'll get to them.
Actually, something I forgot to put in my notes, so I didn't bring up as we wait for the questions to roll in. I wasn't a huge fan of the way, and I think Alexandra brought this up on our Discord too. I wasn't a huge fan of the way that the challenges relating to the weapons only worked for the end of the mods, because it was really like there was never there was never an incentive for me to use the vanilla version of the weapon. Like there
Mm,
was never like a, get 100 headshots just with the shotgun sort of thing. So I
mm,
feel like the only time I was really actively thinking about using a weapon was to use it for the mods.
yeah.
And I would have loved some sort of other thing, like, and like Ratchet and Clank again goes too far the other way. Ratchet and Clank, you only get stuff by killing enemies with the weapon. So I'm never using the cool extra stuff they do. I'm only using the base
Mm,
version of them, and I kind of want something that does both.
yeah.
I want to have my cake and eat it too. Video games, so get on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think yeah, there's probably a bit more that could be done to make the mods integrate more nicely for most of the weapons with the basic mechanics, right? I'm thinking especially of the with a rifle, whatever it is, where
Yeah.
you get the mods where you can just kind of fire infinite rockets. And I know from about
It-
halfway through the game just stopped using the base version of it and just shot the little, not rockets, like little bombs,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
The missiles.
Um,
Yeah, rather than just using the base bullets.
See, that's interesting because so for me, that weapon became my primary one to use against weaker enemies. Like that was what I used against imps and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
And the rockets were something that only came out when my rocket launcher was out of ammo and there was still a Mancubus or something like that on the field.
Okay.
But like that rocket mod to me, that goes back to right what I was talking about at the start of this stream, where like I want that thing where the shared ammo balance, like because those rockets became my backup. Like, oh
Mm,
shit, I need more rocket damage. I need hard hitting
mm,
damage, and like
mm.
that's what I wanted more of. I want a plasma cannon version, but like, oh, sometimes, I'm going to use it as a shotgun equivalent or something. Like, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I already talked about that a lot.
Fair enough. Any other bits and pieces before we dive into some of these Q&As?
No, let's hit up some of the questions.
Okay.
Um,
John says, what did we think of the boss fight? Specifically, how far into the game we are before the first one?
I was actually going to bring out when you asked about the boss fights. My first thought was I was surprised when I entered the first one because it was like I think there's 13 missions and the first boss is at the end of the ninth.
Yeah,
Like
it's pretty late in the game.
we entered the boss fight and I was like, this game has boss fights. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell?
Yeah, I liked it though. I liked that it wasn't just a boss at the end of each level. I liked that they
Yeah.
were spaced out enough that you really got excited when they came up.
Yeah, I agree. Although they felt quite close together, like towards the end, because that was like every 2 levels, like right at the end
Yeah.
there. But yeah, I thought they were very well designed bosses as well. Particularly the last one, the Spider Mastermind, like made me do platforming and choose my weapons carefully. Which is like that's what you want a boss to do. A boss should be like an ultimate challenge that makes you think about the core gameplay more. Like there's a lot of bosses which just feel like they're a long fight of a regular enemy. These are actually like they use the environment in a cool way. Like the way the Spider Mastermind would like electrify the ground. So
Yeah,
you had
so
to
you
like
need to
get
climb
up.
up on the little.
Yeah. Like stuff like that. Like using bosses to manipulate the core gameplay loop in ways regular enemies can't, is what a good boss is. And I think all three of them did that in a cool way.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought they were very fun. Favorite demon? Favorite to fight? Maybe do you have a least favorite as well?
So that's from David White.
Yep.
Oh, what would be my favorite demon? I guess I was always kind of excited when oh god, what are they called? Hell Knights.
Yeah.
Because the way they charged me, that was one of the enemy types that really forced me to play Doom because I had to run away from them as I was shooting them. Like they're a great enemy for putting pressure on you.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer as well. So I'll have to pick a different one and say the Pinkies, who I just thought were always very fun.
What's a very similar level of pressure?
Exactly.
Like the least favorite ones, honestly, by the end of the game, it was the
Skulls?
Mancubuses.
What about the fiery skulls?
Oh, see, they were fun. Like, because they're a very
yeah.
different style of enemy. They're more of an
true.
environmental hazard. They blur that line
Yes.
between. No, for me, Mancubuses just because like I never felt like they were a threat, but they were just big bullet sponges. Like I never felt like I was getting killed by them, but I felt like I was having to invest tons of time in just erasing them from the battlefield in the most boring way possible. Whereas like all the other heavy hitters like Hell Knights, I think the Barons, like the big red guys who also kind of charge you and throw shit at you. I felt like even when they were big heavy hitters, and the cacao demons as well, they're like unique things to killing them. I had to concern the Mancubuses just felt like they were time sinks,
Fair enough. Yeah,
which is
I
what
can see
probably why
that.
it ground my gears so much that the one major like palette swap enemy was just another
It was a
Mancubus.
Mancubi. Yeah.
Whereas yeah, like the specters didn't bother me because I was like, oh, this is a cool difference on a regular pinky.
Yes, a cool twist.
Like the amount of times I got blindsided by a specter who came at me from 45 degrees. Like sometimes I get blindsided by pinky who came at me from behind, and I'd be like, yeah,
Hmm.
whatever, like that's fair. Whereas like sometimes a specter would just hit me, and I'd be like, oh fuck, I was too busy paying attention to the other enemy.
Yeah.
Like they balanced the specters in a really fun way because they were hard to see, but if you're looking for them, super easy to see.
Yeah. Spectres again pulled straight from OG Doom, and
Oh really?
again like perfectly translated.
Yeah, because like again, like that's another thing I want to give it a lot of credit for. That's a really tricky line to walk, is having invisibility be difficult to notice, but also not impossible. Like
Yeah.
so many games,
Yeah.
invisibility is either pointless or overpowered. The specters blend into the chaos of the battlefield in a really fun way, where once you realize you got to look for them, you could see them, but like they will catch you completely unawares if you're not looking for them.
If you aren't expecting them,
Yeah.
100%.
But like I've never had invisibility work so well in a game before, so like a lot of credit to that.
Yeah. To Cake is a Lie 1, any thoughts about the soundtrack? I thought it
Yeah,
was very good. I found myself like I wouldn't go back and listen to it, but because it's pretty like atmospheric, I guess. Or not
yeah,
atmospheric, but sets an atmosphere with its kind of hard rock like vibes.
yeah. It's also that's just not the sort of stuff I usually listen to. Like I found myself listening to the Disco Elysium and like Hollow Knight and a lot of other Game Club
Mm,
soundtracks after the fact because that's I listen to a lot of like chill video game soundtrack stuff at work.
mhm.
Like that's the
This is
sound.
more hardcore.
Yeah, this is a bit too hardcore for me to like listen to it on its own, but like for in the game, fantastic.
Oh yeah, I thought it was very good, and I found myself enjoying it a lot during the game.
Sound design in
Yeah,
general, actually, in this game was great. Like,
yeah, defo.
sound effects for crunching shit and glory kills, perfect.
Yeah,
This game did a good job of like I knew when I'd killed all the enemies because the battle music would stop, which is a bit of an industry standard and like not particularly worth calling out, but like uh, just yeah, like
yeah,
we,
executed well.
we played that music before from the opening of the thing in the elevator where the Doom guy smashes it and it comes up and says like Bethesda, and I was just like fuck that music was bopping when that was happening.
Yeah,
Like,
it gets
yeah.
you into the vibe so well. Like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking kill some demons. um, yeah, cool. Well, from one game that's about a humanoid planet being invaded by crazy monsters to another, should we talk about what we're doing next month?
Yeah, next month we're going to be playing Into the Breach, which I believe this is another return developer because this is by the same people who made FTL, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. So it is.
So yeah, and in fact, I think this is the only other game they've made, so this will be a fun like comparison. But yeah, this is another one similar to Doom. I've heard good things about this game from like YouTubers and streamers I follow who tend to have similar tastes to me most of the time. Um,
Mm,
Specifically, ones who usually hate strategy games have said Into the Breach is a strategy game they actually like playing.
yeah.
Um, so I'm interested to try it out.
Yeah, it kind of blurs the line between a puzzle game and a strategy game in a way that's going to be very exciting to dive more into. So yeah, I'm
Interesting.
keen on getting into it more as well.
And this is a roguelike as well, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I don't know. Like, it doesn't have trapping in the sense that you'll kind of replay bits. You'll kind of replay it over and over with it kind of varying as you go. Yes.
Okay.
It's like,
Oh, that's fine. We can talk about this next
yeah,
month.
I don't know.
Sorry, I thought
Roguelike is a weird genre.
yeah, okay. Sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot there. Um, yeah, okay, cool. Just because, like, obviously coming from FTL, I was interested if they sort of stuck to that sort of vibe. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, they have for sure.
I'm excited to try this one out.
Yeah, I am too. So we'll be playing that over the next month. Remember, if you want to tune into our streams or stream it yourself or watch some other community members' streams and chat about it throughout the month, the place to go to do that is the Doof Media Discord, doofmedia.com/Discord. You can join for free. Anyone can join, and you can, hang out, chit chat, play games, do all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Like that makes Game Club like this. This stream is fun, but like the main part of Game Club is playing the game with everyone else in the Discord. So please check it out if you're somebody who only watches the stream.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So,
and with that, I guess we'll wrap up.
Yeah, we'll see you. I think it's this is one of our 5-week months, so it's going to be the 7th of August.
Oh yeah,
for Into the Breach.
Cool. So we'll catch everyone then.
See ya.
Bye.